Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because this is actually a show that I've been looking forward to watching for quite some time. And if I'm being honest, I can't say it fully delivered, but that's giving stuff away early. So let's talk about Agent Carter. Now, of course, as usual, we're going to be splitting this up into the season format. I know I haven't done that in a while. I haven't really covered a show that has multiple seasons. So we're going back to this format. And let's start with season one. And I apologize for the poor quality of this poster. I unfortunately couldn't find anything better. It's actually coming off a bit better here in StreamYard than it is on my slides. But if it's low quality, I couldn't find anything better. Apologies. So let's just start with the pros that this season has. For one, it continues the MCU tradition of having a really nice setting and really just nailing the setting in general with the 40s aesthetic, just with the way everything looks, the kind of music that everyone's playing. And also another aspect that's really frustrating that I will definitely be getting to later. And I do also like the action quite a bit. Now, of course, this is an espionage spy show, or probably not like spy, more, I guess it's more in the espionage aspect of things. So, of course, you'd expect a lot of hand to hand combat, and that's what you get. And needless to say, this agent kicks ass. She is really good at kicking ass. That was two different ways to say the exact same thing. I'm really good at this. But yes, of course, action's well handled. And getting to the characters that I did like from the season, I did find that Peggy and Jarvis had really good chemistry. Peggy just being the agent who wants to do the right thing and get the mission done, and Jarvis being the guy who wants to help her. But unfortunately, at least in terms of this review format, that's the most positive that I can say about the season because while I am willing to praise Peggy and Jarvis, I cannot extend the same fate to the former's coworkers. The most that I can do is Agent Sousa. Agent Sousa is the one coworker of Peggy who I did like in both seasons, but I cannot say the same thing about the rest of the agents because look, I get it. This was the 40s. Women weren't taken seriously. This very alpha male general area. I get it. I get that that's generally something that was tolerated back then, but not so much now. So I am willing to give it a pass on that end. What I can't do is give it a lot of leeway when it comes to how they handle it near the second half of the season. Because here's the thing: for the majority of the season, none of them take Peggy seriously because she's the only woman in the SSR. That's fine. I can tolerate that to an extent because I know there's an episode coming up where she's finally trusted with a mission, and you get to that episode, and yeah, it's generally satisfying to see her actually be praised for her work. And then shit goes south. Peggy is framed, and they use the fact that they were taking her seriously as an excuse to vilify her. Really, guys? Come on. And that's really why it's so frustrating the way they treat her in this season. Because you get up to, because, they don't take her seriously up to that point. You get to that point where they actually realize, hey, she's actually something of value here. And then they take that away by framing her and having the entire agency turn on her. Even Agent Sousa, okay, well, actually, I'll give him a little bit of credit because he's at least reluctant to get involved in that, but still, it's still very frustrating. And going on to a bit of a more minor problem, the Leviathan. I almost said the Intelligentsia, and even that's not correct. But no, Leviathan. I was expecting something on the level of the Hand from, the Defender saga. This is worse. Somehow, I don't know how, this had a lot of potential to be better than that, but what you end up with, instead of a bunch of badass ninja warriors, you get a scientist and an assassin. Riveting. Now, to be fair, in the second to last episode of the season, they do establish themselves as an actual threat, but still, I was expecting something that was much bigger than, a scientist, an assassin, and then just a group of cronies who had their voice boxes removed. So, in general, kind of a disappointing season, if I'm being completely honest. It's not bad, but it's just not what I was hoping for. Like, I was expecting. Well, I should probably save my thoughts for a bit later. Let's talk about something better. Season 2, and I was actually able to find a good poster for this one. High quality one at least. Now, following the events of season 1, of course, now the coworkers know Peggy's on their side. She's not the bad guy, and they take her seriously. So automatically, they're less frustrating. So that's the big issue with the first season gone. But at the same time, one thing that I liked about this season is that the threat is established early on in the season with Whitney Frost and the Zero Matter. Now, the Zero Matter is kind of the big thing, both with Dr. Jason Wilkes and with Whitney Frost, both of which are very interesting characters in their own right, where Jason is this scientist who wants to help in any way he can, but obviously can't because he's phasing through everything with the Zero Matter. So most of it is about just trying to find a way to solidify him so they can stop Whitney. And Whitney is another little interesting villain because she's this movie star who has to keep her Zero Matter hidden, but at the same time, she's not afraid to use that Zero Matter on anyone. So already they established that threat very well, so there's no real underwhelming twist. That and also the nice setting and the espionage action are still present, so the better points of season 1 are still here. And of course the characters as well. I do like are that they allow themselves to have Peggy be able to show a little bit more vulnerability, do that a little bit of character development because admittedly they didn't do it that much in the first season. They kind of just had her being the agent who wants to get stuff done and do the right thing. Here they actually show her being a little bit more vulnerable with some of her allies, and I think it's really nice when the tough characters are allowed to be vulnerable. With that being said, this still wasn't a great season, and for the first of my cons, I have to take back the underwhelming twist thing because the way they handled Dr. Wilkes was definitely predictable. I mean, it's not like they made it obvious who he was throughout the season. It's just in the beginning of the season they try to frame him, and it's like the SSR tries to frame him, I think, and it gets you thinking. It's like, oh, is he actually a villain? And then they have him be one of the good guys throughout the season. It's like, oh, okay, I guess they were wrong about him. Nope, he turns on Peggy and Sousa, and of course he regrets that later, but it still doesn't change the fact that he did it. At the same time, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Whitney Frost being made sympathetic. I mean, this isn't to the extent of the Flag Smashers from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but this is still kind of the issue where it's hard to tell if Whitney's really, if they're trying to make her a threat or not, because they kind of show that in her childhood, despite her being really smart, no one took her seriously because girl. But yeah, that's the one thing that I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it in general. That, and this is still one of those shows that I don't see myself rewatching. Like, that's not an objectively negative thing or a subjectively negative thing. It's just always something where it does kind of place the show a bit lower than some of the other ones because shows that I see myself rewatching more tend to rank higher, at least for me. That's not really an issue, it's just something that I feel is worth bringing up. So, final thoughts. Season 1 has to get a 2, which is unfortunate because I was really looking forward to this, but just the fact that they build up this moment of satisfaction for Peggy and then take it away by framing her was just absolutely frustrating, and it didn't really make her mistreatment throughout the season worth it. Which is like here's the thing. I get it. 40s, women aren't taken seriously, but I was hoping that at one point, you know, the other agents would pull their heads out of their asses and realize that Peggy Carter is actually a force of is actually someone who you can trust on missions and someone who should be taken seriously. They give her that moment and they strip it away. That's the big frustrating part that ultimately made the season so unsatisfying. And then, of course, Leviathan just being underwhelming. I mean, there were some good things about the season, but overall, just the whole thing with actually her being taken seriously, just it nearly ruined the whole thing. And season 3 has the no, not season 3. Season 2 is getting a 3. Now, the good thing about this is that it did fix the big issue from the last season. She is taken more seriously, and I forgot to mention that yeah, she does butt heads with some of the other agents, but it's only because she's technically going kind of rogue and on her own terms. So at least here, when they butt heads, it's not for stupid bullshit. And of course, the good parts of the first season are still there, but I feel like if certain parts were written a bit better, this could have been a 4 or even a 5. This could have been a great season, but because of how predictable some parts are and how I'm not entirely a huge fan of, you know, a certain character being made sympathetic, I had to bump it down to a 3. And in general, and the show in general is getting a 2.5 out of 5. So in general, like a 5 out of 10. Like this one's okay. It's fine. There's nothing horrible about it. It's just a frustrating first season and a second season that could have been great, but is just good because of some writing issues. I'd still recommend giving it a watch because maybe my issues with the first season might not be shared, but at least for me, I can't really see myself giving the show a higher rating than what I've given it. Not bad, certainly better than She-Hulk. I'll give it that. And at least so far, it's better than Inhumans. But I don't really see myself rewatching this one when compared to some of the other shows. All right. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all that generic stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next review. Take care and Godspeed.